Hi, everybody, and welcome to our attendee engagement best practices. We're excited to have you guys here, and we're really excited for a fun and interactive webinar today. Just some quick reminders. We do have these meetings every Thursday. Next week, we're going to be going back to kind of what we've been doing before, our meetings based on getting back to face-to-face meetings. And one other reminder, please make sure you're submitting your questions throughout the call. We will be answering those and kind of going through them as we go. Real quick, I want to go ahead and go through our forward-looking statement. So just as a reminder, this is all of this information provided during the presentation and discussion is based on our opinions. The information provided on this document is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, all the information, content, and materials in this document are for general informational purposes only. We're not lawyers. We're not providing legal advice. We've been in this industry and we want to offer you guys our opinions and our advice, but please don't take it as legal advice. So with that, we are actually going to go ahead and kick off with a video here. So stay tuned. And then after that, we're going to have Benji and Midge from Song Division come on.
Me, baby, break me in two. But you move me, honey. Oh, yes, you do. Good morning, everybody. Benji Harris from Song Division. We're going to be kicking off this virtual best practices webinar, and I'm going to introduce to you a man who is the lead in the Broadway production of Rock of Ages. He was the lead in the West End production of We Will Rock You. He's performed with Queen and INXS. Give it up for Mig Ayesa.
Tonight I'm gonna have myself a real good time. I feel alive. Don't stop me, no. Don't stop me, cause I'm having a good time.
Whoa, Mig, I gotta still only have 5 minutes to explain who we are at Song Division and what we do. So buckle up, everybody. You ready? You ready for this, Mig?
I'm ready for this, Benji. Go for it.
Of course. Perfect. Of course you are. All right, guys. So we are Song Division, and we are talking about it today. And so what we do at Song Division is we provide these really unique music experiences that are designed to do two things: designed to unite people around their purpose and drive home key messaging of events. Now, the reason why we use music, you might be wondering, well, why music? Well, music is incredibly powerful. There's a lot of science behind it, which I could talk about for half an hour, but I only got about 4 minutes now. So here we go. Music makes you feel good. When you listen to music, your body is flooded with dopamine, and that's a good thing. It increases social bonds. Anytime you experience music in groups, you feel good and you want to be closer to people. And it's also tied to memory. It's an incredible tool for teaching key messaging of an event. So here's how we do it. We use music, and more specifically, the power of songs. Songs are powerful, and that's why we love music. And we actually write songs with people virtually. We've done this for live events for years and years and years, but now we've figured out how to make it fun and engaging on Zoom. So no experience is required. So nobody, we always explain that you don't have to have a musical bone in your body to participate in what we do. So here's how we write a song with you. We bring an entire group into a virtual platform. We are typically on Zoom, but we've done this on a lot of different platforms. And this right here is actually a green screen. I threw a white sheet over it today, but I kind of play weatherman. And we use this to teach people what a song looks like. We put up a little verse that's, these are 4 lines. These 2 lines rhyme. These 2 lines rhyme. And so we break the ice, we have a little fun, and then we take the whole group and we send them out to virtual breakouts to write 4 lines of their own together. It's a team building experience to get people connecting and writing a song together. Then we bring them all back. Everyone reads their lyrics, and we arrange the song on the spot, and we play the song for them. So they get to hear what they worked on together in song form, and it's really exciting. Then we sometimes Mig is my amazing producer, and Mig produces this song, and this way everyone has a final recording of their team building experience, and they can jam it in their car and it sounds like it was on the radio. So that's how we write a song with people. Now, sometimes we're looking for ways to spice up events, make them more exciting, engaging. Well, sometimes we do what's called a summary song, where someone like myself or someone like Mig is actually part of an event, and we are written into the script where at the top they welcome everyone and they say, listen, we've got a special guest. We have Mig Ayesa from Song Division here. So Mig would explain what he was doing. He says, well, I'm actually here to attend this event, take notes on all the presenters and keynotes, boil it down into the thesis statement, if you will, and then we're going to write a song and we're going to play it for you at the end of the event. So it makes it very increases anticipation for what's to come. We make it interactive by launching a poll, and people can vote on the style of song that we're going to write. So it's completely spontaneous and actually written on the spot. Sometimes we enhance that by having a whole band. We put a band in a broadcast facility and we beam the band into the event. So just like we would do at live events, where when a speaker is coming up on stage, the band will play a custom 20-second stinger for the speaker coming on stage. And so we can do this virtually. We can have the band put on a virtual concert at the end of the webinar, and it's a lot of fun. It adds the energy and feel of a late night show. And last but not least, I've got about 90 seconds left. So we do this program called, it's our take on a virtual happy hour. So we call it a musical happy hour because it's a non-stop hour of live performances. We write a song about people. We do networking breaks in virtual breakouts, and we also play a rock and roll game show. And this is where it's going to get fun, everybody, today. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is open up the question box. All of you attendees at home should have a question box. And how we're going to play is, we are actually musicians, Mig and I, and the first segment is called Name That Tune. So for instance, I'm going to grab my guitar right here. So what I want you guys to do, I'm going to play a little bit of a song that you know and love. And if you know the name of the song, I want you to type it into the chat box. And the first one answer wins. So I'm going to open up my question box so I can see. So here we go. Name this tune, everybody. Goo Goo Dolls. That's right, Slide from the Goo Goo Dolls. So how we make that interactive is, was the first one in on the chat box, and depending on the platform, we can actually blow them up and ask them, what was the name of that song? And so they get their moment to be on screen. We also do rock and roll trivia. So Mig, one folks here, a rock and roll trivia question.
Okay, well, according to Tom Petty, what boulevard do the vampires move west down?
Question.
Ventura, absolutely. Ventura. David Elsie, absolutely. Ventura.
Nailed it.
I love the fact that you saw my dog walking in the background. Thank you. That's my favorite Prince.
This is a perfect example of the spontaneity of what a game show feels like. Okay, so another rock and roll game show segment we do is what we invented. It's called Finish the Line. I will sing a song that you know and love, and if you know the next line, type it into the chat box. And how we normally do it is sometimes we would bring someone up on screen, and if they know the next line, we give them a point. But if they sing the next line, ooh, they get 2 points. So it does play like a TV show, completely spontaneous, completely engaging and fun. So here is the first round of Finish the Line. It goes like this. Yeah. You are my fire, the one desire to leave. And then you type in the chat box the name.
Oh,
I can feel him typing at home. I feel it.
Yeah, there's so many people saying, when you say, when I want it that way, when you say I want it that way, when you say I want it that way. Sir Benji.
It's believe when I say I want it that way. I saw Katie Hobbs got it. Kristen got it. Yeah, Karina got it. Well done. So we've got one more question before we throw it back to our wonderful host, Michelle. Mig, what is the last question?
Okay, here's a bit of rock trivia. Here you go. Taylor Swift recently ended her feud with what pop star? Who?
Good question.
Oh, Katie Hobbs is straight in with Katy Perry. Is that because her name is
right.
Katie?
Kathleen got it. Let's see. Laura got it. Kim God. Now she has a feud with Kanye as well, but the pop star Taylor Swift tried to steal, or Katy Perry tried to steal Taylor's backup dancers. Not cool. So
was that Katie, that Taylor Swift is having a feud with everybody? Can you get it?
Exactly. So to wrap it all up, everybody, we are about out of time. But in a nutshell, this is what we do at Song Division. We make events engaging, exciting, interactive, and memorable, using the power of music. So thank you guys for letting us kick off the demonstration today. I'm going to throw it back to the amazing Michelle from Meeting Sites Pro. Michelle, thank you for letting us kick this off today.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for getting us started in such an exciting way.
You're welcome.
In a little bit. Okay, everybody, welcome to the Attendee Engagement Best Practices. We're really glad that you all joined us, and I'm just excited to be kicking us off this morning. I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are. We are a full-service worldwide meeting management company. We specialize in meetings for all industries, but in particular life sciences, and we do a lot with the government. In March of 2020, like many of you out there in the hospitality business, our meetings came to a halt as the world shut down due to COVID-19. In late April, we started reaching out to industry leaders from across the country. Many who had lost their jobs felt isolated and depressed and not knowing how to move forward from where they were. And so with our meetings rescheduling or canceling or going virtual, in May, I decided to start bringing some thought leaders from across the country in. They were hotel leaders, CEOs of other third-party meeting management companies, and some of our hotel partners and some of our planners to discuss how to move forward and come up with some best practice about meeting face-to-face in this time frame. So these meetings that we're having came out of the idea of trying to help our industry move forward from where we are. So hopefully many of you have been on since the very beginning. We appreciate you staying in touch and connecting with us. And many of you who've been on this know that the purpose of our meetings today is really to make sure that we are here to elevate each other, to inspire, to share resources, to give hope, and to help us get back to business. So that being said, I'm really excited to introduce our first presenter today that's going to come on with me. His name is Dan Sides. He's with the Sides Creative Agency. And Dan does a lot of work with a lot of pharmaceuticals, life sciences. He also has worked with high-tech companies. His creative process is unbelievable to me. I met him and talked to him for about 30 minutes, and he had a vision and an idea of what we should do as a company, and just brought it all to life in a matter of no time. So I wanted to bring him on and share some of his talent with you, have him show some of the work that he's done so far, and talk a little bit about his creative process. So welcome, Dan. Glad to have you on.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And that was a blast. That beginning introduction was awesome. I'm like dancing in my seat. This is too much.
Yeah, I love Song Division. They do a great job of keeping everybody engaged and feeling uplifted. So
totally agree.
So talk to us a little bit about your creative. Can you show us a couple of the slides first? Bring up some of this before and afters, and can you talk a little bit about your creative process and kind of what you do?
Sure. To start off, I think with the creative process, you really just have to boil everything down to space and simplicity. When you look at the before on the left, you've got some competing pieces of, branded elements. There's some competing fonts, type treatments, etc. So what I like to do is really just what I consider block and tackle. You block out all of the pieces that are important. You create priority within that, and then you tackle it by just laying it out smoothly and softly within something that is visually appealing, allowing space to do what it does. Allow your eye to, kind of walk a line almost.
Yeah, it's hard. I know you make it sound like it's really easy when you're talking about that. And I'm a very visual person, so like just seeing something, I can tell that on the before that something wasn't right for me on it, but I couldn't put my finger on what that was. And then I looked at the one you did and I was like, you nailed it. And I know it's hard to come up with that. For those of us that are non-creative people, do you have any, other than hiring you, which is a great idea to bring you on for that, do you have any feedback for us that could help us when you're talking about lines, just something specific that could help us come up with something that makes it a little bit more engaging and feel better to look at?
Use only 2 fonts in any of your engagement graphical elements, whether it's presentation or print piece. Try to stay within a controlled environment. So colors, if you're going to use colors, use them as accents rather than just wildly, all over the place. And try to have a focal point. If you're building something that is important to tell a story, use it as a focal point. If it's a PowerPoint that needs a picture of a cat, it's a picture of a cat. Don't overthink it. Keep it extremely simple, because like right now, I have animals that are running around. Everything is busy outside of our world. And when we're focused in on a virtual environment, we want to keep it so that it's nice and clean and feel tidy. So yeah, I would say just basic, the basic block and tackling would be just keeping things very, very controlled.
Perfect. Can we go to the next slide? So, and same with PowerPoint presentations, when you're putting those together, or talk a little bit about what you've done here.
Sure. For the left-hand side, I noticed the opportunity to kind of just have a, call it like a, screen that just sits there during the beginning of the presentation, even if it's in person or virtual. Something that, you could read quickly, but it doesn't have to scare you. It's like, hey, I'm here, and it's professional at the same time. It's focused in on the introduction. The second slide that has the logos on the actual slide, I want them to be controlled. I want them to be in line. I want them to be kind of a little smaller than your brand, because this is about you. This is your corporate kind of communication. Within different types of presentations, you can obviously go and play with who owns the billing of the presentation. But with this, it was just more about clutter. Try and get rid of the clutter, keep it clean, treat it as it's your house, and you want to really keep your house clean and make sure everybody that visits you has a great time and can really read through the content.
And I think I feel like when we're putting together PowerPoint presentations, I always say death by PowerPoint. It's just really, we've gotten to, when we're presenting, we're reading the slides. Do you have any rules of thumb for us for putting stuff together? I've seen paragraphs, and I know one of the things I try to stick to is you never put anything in a bullet point that needs a comma or a period. It just should be a few words. But do you have any other feedback or guidance for those that are putting together presentations?
Presentations are like, let me see, the simpler the better when it comes down to presentations. Be able to read the little quote thing underneath of it. If you're on PowerPoint, read from that. Don't read what content that's on the presentation. So 25 words at max. Font size, 18 to 20 minimum.
Yeah.
I think that's important to know that the parameters, since we're not displaying on a 100-inch screen in a event, we're now focused in on each one of our attendees' screen resolution. So think about that too. Almost using a web methodology, like a web design methodology, in your presentation as well. You can show navigation in a presentation, not showing, hey, this is where we're going to go next. Not showing too much, just keeping it really delicate and simple. Treat it as a web design, and sometimes you really do benefit from that.
That's some great feedback. Because
yeah.
at the basis of any engagement, we started off with song division doing some activities, and a lot of times you're thinking, or entertainment, when you're thinking about engagement, you're thinking about entertainment. But it's not necessarily about, just entertainment. It's about the content as well. And a lot of my clients are, it's heavy content driven. And so finding, like you're saying, less is more, finding a way to balance that when you're putting it together, where you're putting key points in and takeaways, but accenting the key points without having a book written is important. It all starts there.
I also think that you can have more slides now. You can show things in shorter amount of time because it flashes on your screen. It makes you think. It keeps you wondering, did I miss something? You know, if you hold a slide for 20 minutes, you're going to fall asleep. There's going to be people that just randomly pass out, and you're like, oh, there goes another one. You know, so change is good. I think that's a really important thing. Is when there's less content on the slide, that changing the slides, going full screen, going one word, going to different types of relationship and priority of your content is a good thing.
Perfect. Do you have any other kind of tips that you want to leave the audience with before we bring the panel on?
I think that if you can fail fast, I think that was one of the methodologies that I grew up with. From a design standpoint, it means maybe just sketch it on a piece of paper. If you're like laying something out, just keep it really, really delicate and simple. Don't overthink it. Stay to your brand standards. If you don't have brand standards, call me. That's as simple as it is. Don't be afraid to do something that might fail, but if you fail once, you fail once. If you fail a bunch of times, then something's wrong. But just trying different things out. It's a lot of fun. It should be fun.
Well, thank you, Dan, very much for sharing your expertise with me. So I'm going to keep you on because Dan's going to stay on as a panelist. And for all of you out there, use your questions. Please, this is a different type, those of you that are new, type of setup. We don't really have a formal agenda for this. We let your questions kind of guide where we go with our conversations. So if you can please blow up the question box. This is all about you getting what you need to get out of this. It's real important you at least get one key takeaway today. For me personally, it's my goal and it's the panel's goal to make sure that you guys get key takeaways. So blow that up. We're going to bring on the rest of the panel and introduce them. Dan's going to stay on, so your questions I will definitely have Dan answer your questions. Just keep them coming in. So Dan, thank you again. I really appreciate you being here, and thanks for sharing your creativity. It's something that I can't even describe it because I'm not creative like that. So it's just really an amazing skill. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to bring Benji Harris back on from Song Division. I'm going to bring Christine Iverson from Crow Practice, Lisa Jennings from Wildly Different, Tim Kurbavez from Talon Entertainment AV, Kurbavaz. I said it wrong the first time. So we're going to bring in Helen Taffet from Sensational Baskets, and that is our panel. So we're really happy to have you guys all on with us today. Thank you very, very much for being here. Make sure you're off mute so that when we're going to ask questions, you guys are able to answer them, and then mute yourselves back again when you're ready to answer. So thank you guys for being here. Really do appreciate it. I'm going to kick it off with Song Division. Benji, I'm going to ask you from other companies who inspire virtual engagement. Like, what's the main difference?
The main difference is that we're using music, and we're using music in a way that nobody else is doing. Secondly, we use professional musicians. Our Team USA MCs have all toured with music superstars. Like for me, I'm based in Nashville, so I've been a touring guitar player. If music fans out there, I've played guitar for Chris Young, Cassidy Pope, Sam Hunt. These are all big, kind of newer country stars now. So we bring this element of legitimacy to the meetings and events industry, especially virtual now, of we have lived the life, we've been on the arenas, and now you are getting this professional experience from people that have walked the walk and talked the talk.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I know some of yours is a very unique idea for engagement as well. I've done a lot of the cooking and wine tasting and, polling, and I've done even some Song Division, which is really exciting. Are there any other creative ideas out there that anybody has engagement? And I'm going to open that up for anybody that wants to answer other than those things.
Well, of course, I think starting a meeting with sending a gift to someone. Michelle.
So Helen's bringing this up. This is a great idea. So this is you can get people excited before the meeting. You could have a very basket sent to them or a box sent to them that is branded. It could have the agenda in it. It could have all sorts of stuff. This is a virtual meeting survival kit. And this is the first time I'm going to be getting into it. I'm going to open it up now and kind of share the contents of it. But there's a number of ways to do this. I've gotten logoed earbuds sent in advance. It doesn't have to be a costly thing, but it's just something to get people excited about. Open up this box. It's hard to see inside, but you can see I have some goodies inside there. And so there's some snacks. There's some pens, some highlighters, a notepad, just to name a few of the items. And Helen, can you just speak a little bit to the different types of engagement pre-program that people could consider doing?
And so for years, I've been telling planners that this is the best way to kick off a meeting. In pre-COVID, people would come into a hotel room. They've been traveling by plane and train and car to get to your meeting. And what a great way to kick off your meeting is with a gift of any sort. So now you can send a gift ahead of the beginning of a virtual meeting. So we could do a healthy snack mix. We have done, a new client reached out to us. They always had a campfire as part of their meeting. So we sent out s'mores kits so that every individual could still have their own little campfire at the end of the event. Another one of our clients did a barbecue. So they kind of interacted the cooking, what are you cooking and how are you cooking it, and all that into a meeting. It's a great way to engage your attendees in a meeting, especially virtually.
And you can send them, like I said, an agenda, or you can send them some information. Maybe some of you that are wanting them to pre-consider some questions, you could send the questions in there. It's just a really great way to get everybody really started on that. And I know, Tim, you and I were conversing about what you just did, and I'm going to ask Alyssa to go ahead and roll that video because I'd like to start with that, and then I'll ask you some questions about it. But this is a meeting that he did recently, and which involves some engagement, pre-event engagement, as well as engagement at the program. So go ahead and take a look.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the Caffeine and Conversation portion of Veloci's 2020 member meeting. I'm Josh Boone, Executive Director, and I'll be your MC for today's meeting. Thank you for joining us. Each primary Veloce member representative should have received a snazzy Veloce mug like this one. I hope you have it in front of you and are sipping some coffee this morning. We included a bag of coffee to kickstart the meeting and the morning the right way, well, caffeinated. So let's raise our mugs in recognition of Southern California Edison for sponsoring today's event. Thank you, Edison and Caroline, So now let's enjoy some tunes from Sacramento's own DJ John B, and we'll have some fun survey questions as we groove. Take it away, John.
That's awesome. So thank you for that. And cheers, everybody. Cheers. You got your mug in hand. I just wanted to go ahead and kick us off and tell us a little bit more about that whole experience, because I know I'm excited when I get something other than a bill in the mail, or junk mail.
Yeah, so this was a relatively small group. It was like a member meeting for this organization. It's essentially a trade group, an industry trade group. And so we wanted a way to make the members feel like they were still connected to each other. And this is obviously something that Helen is working on every day in terms of getting folks to feel special when they open something in the mail or see it in a hotel room. And, this was a relatively intimate meeting with 40 or 50 attendees and then some audience. And we wanted those panelists around the table, the members who were going to sit at a hollow square table in the real life meeting, to feel like they were still connected and had kind of a touch point that they were all together. And so there were actually moments in that event where they all held their mugs up on camera, be like, look, kind of we're in this together. Yeah. And then we added the DJ and basically called it a virtual coffee break. And so I think on the video, I lost sound a couple of times on that video, but basically we opened the meeting with a DJ and with some polling questions, and just get people talking, get people chatting with each other, and kind of, caffeinated, get them perked up for the day. And then basically rolled into the meeting kind of touch point that they were all together. And so, unlike Helen, sending folks special gifts is not my full-time job, but it was something where I think we were able to get a lot of touch point engagement, kind of camaraderie by having everyone have a gift together and have that moment of hearing music like Benji was talking about. And it was really interesting just how people brought up throughout the meeting that like, I've never been on a webinar with a DJ before. And there was a later meeting, a smaller group, they were like, where's the DJ on this one? And it was just something that really, I think both Helen and Benji know, both give a lot of engagement and connection point to people.
They do, and it doesn't have to be long. It could be something that's just short and a pick-me-up. So I just think they're very helpful. And just like at a regular meeting, I mean, a lot of our meetings are going to be hybrid. It's not just virtual. So even at an in-person meeting, getting something in advance, and especially the pre-communication with participants that are attending live now or in person is going to be more critical than ever before. So it's not the first time they're arriving to know that masks are required, or what the room's going to look like when they get there, and what their experience is going to be like. I'm finding that when we're engaging our clients now, we're actually showing videos of what that's going to look like from arrival to a property and to their checking into the hotel, to getting to the meeting space, if the temperature checks are going to be provided. And to Lynn Henderson's point is one of the things that we're doing as well is taking temperatures, but we're also a best practice is including a little temperature check with a hand sanitizer and maybe a little, throwaway mask in a kit when they arrive to the hotel, so that they have that, or even pre-hotel, and they can bring that with them for the number of days they're there, so that they can take the temperature even before they go down to an actual meeting space. So there's a lot of best practices around doing this.
Absolutely.
Does anybody
Michelle?
have any? Yeah, go ahead, Helen.
I was just going to say, I think, and there's so much apprehension, and people have been in quarantine and staying home for so long. There's so much apprehension about going out, and that kind of communication ahead of time is so important, so people know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say I had worked with Wildly Different, Lisa Jennings, the CEO over there, and I worked with them on a program for one of my pharmaceutical clients. And it was a universal scavenger hunt called Get to the Point. And it was so much fun. I mean, I had a blast in actually in person in attending that. And as I understand, you've also now, you do it virtually. Can you talk a little bit about some of the options for engagement with your company?
Absolutely. So I think what makes our events wildly different, hence the name, is that as opposed to something that individuals are doing and being engaged on as a group on a screen, our games allow people any size group can do it, but then they're breaking off into smaller groups of 4 to 5 people to actually interact one-on-one with each other. So at the end of the game, it's like, oh gosh, I had no idea Bob was so much fun or that Jane was so clever, because they've spent 30 to 120 minutes, depending on the length of the game that you play with one another together, where they're actually solving problems and doing creative exercises and communicating with one another. So we have everything from virtual escape rooms where they have to try and figure out what it is that they need to open on the screen they're looking at. And as they're doing it, clues are opening up and they're working together to solve them in order to get a code that will allow them to pass from screen to screen to screen. Or a murder mystery activity where they are doing some fun trivia-based things about being a detective, like answering questions about fingerprint blood work analysis, but then something opens up that reveals something that was found in a room in the manor where the murder was committed, or something about one of the potential suspects, so that they're working together to make guess as to who did it and with what. And I just love that at the end of that, those games really do give people a better sense for one another. So it works from a team building aspect or just a simple networking, let's get to know one another type of thing.
Yeah, I know what brought out the competitive nature in me. I really enjoy playing games and competing. I've got to win. So it was a lot of fun doing that. It's really nice to see how a lot of companies have, I know it's been overused, but reimagined. They have really added a bunch of services and gotten innovative. You really have to think differently in today's environment. And if you're doing it right, you are thinking differently, because this is not pre-COVID times, and we really have to make sure that we're careful about how we're doing it. And I do think hybrid's here to stay. I do not think it's going away. So this engagement conversation is really important. There is a question about creative virtual swag bags that don't have to be mailed to attendees for events. Any ideas from anybody on the panel on that? Merely, this is probably Lisa and Helen mainly that do those.
A virtual swag bag.
And items that don't have to be mailed to attendees. So I'm thinking, this is from Christopher, and I'm thinking, Christopher, I think you're talking about like maybe something to hand to them on site, which I think you can do something, anything that you can send to them in the mail could be handed on site, correct?
I had a thought, if you're talking about a virtual event or a hybrid event where you want something for your online attendees that maybe doesn't have to be mailed, what about something like a virtual background image? Or, I mean, obviously it's a very simple thing, but if you send folks, a unified virtual background image that they can all have the same background, and that's an easy kind of literally just sending them an email with the JPEG.
Yeah, well, he said, like, what about having a link to something that they can download? Now, I've seen that if you were going to go that route.
Yeah, I was. I mean, it's actually possible, right, to do something like an Amazon gift card, right, and then have people be going into their swag bag, which is kind of interesting. So as opposed to the traditional, oh, everybody's getting a branded Frisbee or something, maybe there's something that you can do for them like that, where they get to pick what's going to make their virtual work atmosphere a little bit more comfortable type of thing, and they'll remember you because it was personalized for them.
Yeah,
and they could do a virtual treasure hunt or scavenger hunt. So, give them a list of things that they need to find in their own house and make that a part.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Christine with Crow, we have some meditation virtual downloads, some fitness virtual downloads, and things like that.
That's a great idea. And I think that's what they're saying, like about downloading and just like clicking on a button for it. Other things was somebody had mentioned a coupon, again, that you can redeem for either a gift or that they can redeem as a ticket to the show. So it gets a little more exciting. There's a lot of different ideas and things you can do around this. Let's talk a little bit and switch into food service, because, I think the rule of thumb for having these is about half. So if you normally have an 8-hour meeting, they're saying do it 4 hours. And less is more in this environment, because you have to keep everybody highly engaged. Are you guys doing anything creative about food for, serving breakfasts or lunches? We saw the snacks that came in for like a break, but how are you handling the food feature? Anybody?
So I personally haven't done it, but I have had people, if their organization is all in one spot, for instance, find a local caterer who can actually drop off a boxed lunch or a boxed breakfast that arrives at their doorstep, and they'll do multiple deliveries at the same time. We're doing things like getting coupons for like a pizza company that is all across the United States. So they're like, hey, order your pizza, make sure it arrives on time so that while you're playing the game or doing the meeting, you're able to snack with your people.
That's great. And there's a lot of companies, I'm sorry, Tim, just real quick. There's a lot of companies that are doing food delivery like Grubhub, but they're literally have come out of the COVID situation, and they do a great job, and they service countrywide. So one of the things is you could have food delivered. They can personalize the food. Again, you can actually do the food in with an agenda or a note to them. So there's a number of ways that you can go ahead and do that. Tim, go ahead and.
That was going to say a DoorDash or a Grubhub or a Postmates coupon will gift your online gift that can be delivered by email. So
that's
Michelle,
perfect.
I've got something.
Go ahead, Benji.
Yeah, I was going to say, so sometimes depending on who we are doing a session for instance, one of our partners is Hard Rock Hotels, and we are in the process of designing customized virtual experiences based on that location. So for instance, the Hard Rock Hotel, New Orleans, it's going to be all New Orleans themed. We're going to be making beignets, live, teaching people this is how you do it. So there are ways to bring in the local flavor and bring that as a unique element to whatever virtual session you have, more of a so people feel special that it's, oh yeah, this is my town, they're doing our stuff.
Love that. That's a really fantastic idea. Thank you, Benji, for bringing that up. There's somebody online that actually brought up, Corinne brought up Dinable. I've never used them before, but that's a company that addresses the issue with food delivery as well. So those of you that want to use that as an option could consider that. There's food box pickup the day before, food and drinks that can be room temperature. They're saying craft beer, popcorn, dried fruits, chocolate, etc. So there's a lot of different ideas about the food service. Okay, let me go to Christine. Can you talk a little about what aspects of health that you focus on when you're doing like corporate meetings?
Sure, absolutely. So with Crow Wellness Hub of Providers, so we focus on right now a lot of stress management. We have aromatherapy experts. So you were speaking about one of our popular home craft parties is we're sending essential oils with a kit so everyone can experience essential oils. And we have a lot of fit sessions, which translate well over virtually, and a lot of our speakers, meditations, things like this.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I think I'm going to go to Tim. Can you tell me how you made the in-person to virtual during COVID?
Yeah. So, I think, virtual events are not entirely new. People have been doing webinars, like this for a long time. I think, virtual event being a primary component, or a hybrid, the virtual being a primary component of the event, I think is a new sort of reinvigorated focus due to COVID. So I had already been working with a lot of clients on webinar aspects or live streaming of in-person events. And so I think, it's a relatively straightforward transition to go from an event that has a large online audience and a relatively small in-person audience to being an all online audience and no in-person audience. And so, for every event, the balance between what's a webinar versus what's a broadcast and kind of that middle ground there.
And I think there's also this new aspect, right? Because with hybrid, you're going to have people in person and you have people virtually. And I think one of the things one of the attendees is Jonathan Lease is asking is, how do you engage online with the people on site to bring them into the process? Are there any creative ideas that you're doing, Tim, to do that?
So a lot of my clients have already been doing large online audiences, and so it's been almost more of a broadcasting, something where we have maybe 1,000 people in the room, but then watching online. So it's not necessarily that there's a ton of engagement between one of the 10,000 online viewers and one of the 1,000 people in the room, but there's going to be ways that we engage the online folks slightly differently from the in-person folks. And so something like during the lunch break, there might be a web-only Q&A session that has some questions from Twitter, from a Q&A system in the webinar platform, whereas the in-person audience gets Q&A off camera.
If I may interject here, I know that we're starting to do quite a few hybrid games. In fact, we had one just yesterday, and there's some people who are in the live environment, and then some people who are at home didn't feel safe coming out, and yet we were still able to put together a fun team building activity for them. So we're doing something, for instance, like the spy school. So the people at home are still on a team with the people in the virtual environment. They're connecting through their devices and the game. The people at home are solving the clues. They're like mission control, and they're revealing the answers for what the people in the virtual environment need to go find and do, and maybe take a photo or video and submit it. So they're the agents in the field, and it really makes them feel like even though they're distant and having slightly different experiences, they're still able to bond together.
That's a really great point, and I do think that's a really critical issue in joining them. It's not, you have to try to find a way to make it more collaborative versus separate functions. But again, there's a lot more planning and conversation that has to go into all of this stuff that we're doing now. It's not just simply throwing a meeting together. It's a lot more strategic. Not that we weren't strategic before, but we have to be more strategic, more forward-looking than we've ever been in the past. So can you tell me a little bit, Lisa, about what virtual events have been most popular in this new?
Well, for sure, it's been those virtual escape rooms and murder mysteries, and I think that's because people already understood what those were in a live environment. So to be into that in a virtual environment, people are already intrigued and excited about what they're about to experience. But something else that's been very popular as well is a standard game. We want something that's custom for us. So we have a lot of clients coming to us saying, how do we weave our message in and make it engaging for our participants? So for instance, we had a pharmaceutical client who we took their training information about a drug, wove it into clues, and people had to use it to escape past the receptionist into the doctor's office, and then escape the doctor's office with a prescription for the drug. So things like that, people, great, there's standard stuff out there, but now how do I make it special for us? It used to be that people thought this was going to pass over in a couple of months, so they were happy to do the standard thing, but now that they know it's probably going to be for, now they're really exploring how can we put our stamp on it.
That's a really great point. And I do think—
Can I chime in real quick?
Yeah, please.
Lisa, so a lot of what I would do is create around an event, and now that the real in-person events are no longer the norm, where virtual is becoming the norm, what from a theme standpoint, like, wow, that's so, it's so balanced around an idea. Mm-hmm. Whereas now you're virtual, how do you bring that type of energy to the virtual environment?
Well, I can only speak from our event perspective, but for our events, we do encourage people to make it themed, right? So if you're doing a manor house murder activity, people are getting dressed up, with like fake mustaches. That's and cool. Dressing up as flappers, and then they might have a background if they're on Zoom where you can customize it, and they're choosing, their scary looking background, and just really feeling immersed. And we're not just gonna play a game. We're like, okay, detectives, are you ready? A murder like has
your voice
happened.
Is in it. Your whole attitude is kind of okay.
I do think once you get in it, it's like when I started the activity that I did over in Orlando. Once you start getting in it, it's really exciting, and everybody's getting in it. It kind of brings everybody together. And I had a client that calls it mandatory fun. So everybody needs to participate in it, and it's funny how when it starts off mandatory to get you participating, but once you start participating, even if you had an option to get out, you still would want to complete it. Just part of the collaboration and all that. But tying that online is definitely challenging, and those are some great ideas for doing that. And along with theme, what do you think about using, your talents of the creative side of it to theme those things together?
I think you have to, from a start point to an end point. So it's a customer experience at that point. It's almost like you're buying a product at a store. You have to think, when I first touch this customer to the last point of contact, what is that relationship, and how can you make it feel significant and memorable, and design and just creativity in itself will help you get through that.
And I think if you go ahead.
I think if you can create themes around the meeting, we did a barbecue box for a company that was a dermatology company, and they had like a hot sauce because one of their products had to do with heat. So they coordinated that, and we're cool. Also doing, we're working on a virtual bourbon tasting. So that, if you can design your product and your gift is with the theme or a sponsor or the brand, it's really important to know what's going on at the meeting so that you can coordinate all that.
And I would say that's a good point of coordination. I think you need to coordinate with all your vendors, whether that's your design agencies, your fulfillment and gift partners, your contributors, and your production agencies and production partners, because all those pieces go together. And I think having everyone together on the call, having your virtual environment branded and skinned, and the broadcast workflow match the needs of your event, and making sure we can get the fidelity of the songs and the quality of the virtual games through that broadcast platform are all critical.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to remind the audience, please ask your questions. I think I'm down to 2 of them that are left right now. So if you could please, this is all about you directing our conversation. And if it's going well, let us know it's going well. If you have questions that are still outstanding, please put them in there so that we're able to address all of your hot issues. Okay. I'm going to go to Helen on this one and ask, when you're being creative, what's the creative process in you putting together a gift for the gifts that go out for a meeting?
Well, we work with the meeting planner to find out the purpose of the meeting and who's attending the meeting. Maybe any past history, they've done these kinds of meetings in the past. What have they done? Who's attended? And where is it being held? Sometimes we can create a gift. Someone mentioned New Orleans. We can kind of create a gift for the event and where it's being held. Time of the year, right now it's summer. We have great summer gifts. We do a lot of themes on our website. We have summer gifts, spring gifts, and of course the holidays. But we've done 4th of July and Memorial Day. So depending on what time of the year you're doing your event, you can create a gift for that. Budget, of course, is important, and then brand awareness do they have sponsors that they want to highlight, and do they want to highlight their own brand? So there's a lot of working with the meeting planner on all those issues.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And they're asking for what is the recommendation for a good time balance for audience engagement with these types of games or activities that we're doing. The meeting be engagement or a small piece of it. And I'm gonna speak to my experience with it. You need to have engagement throughout. I'm saying it starts with the PowerPoint presentation or whatever presentation you're given. Your written document needs to be engaging. And so the other aspects of it, your entertainment pieces, just like in an in-person event, it's an aspect of it that's strategically used to keep people in your session, keep their mind, make them mindful. This is really important, which is what we're talking about here. So anybody else have any comments on that question about a good balance for audience engagement versus entertainment?
I completely agree with you, Michelle. I think it has to be engaging have your segments lined up, bam, 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 and just keep keep it moving. You know, no one wants to sit talking head for, you know, any more than 5 or 6 minutes. You got to keep the program diverse enough to where you're okay. We just did this now. Here, be excited for this part. And if the host is excited, they're going to be excited, and that translates. That really does.
I would also say know your audience, right? So for our games, we have everything from 30-minute long games. And there's some people, when you mention 2 hours, they're like, oh my gosh, no, we'd never be able to hold their attention. And they probably know their group, right? And that's fine. And others who are like, well, do you have a longer game? Because our people really get into it. So I think it's important to know your group for sure.
And I would say on the content versus engagement balance, I think, you know, Michelle, you mentioned keeping the engagement activities throughout the event, and, you know, like songs or music, things like that. If you can get that as, you know, introductions for speakers and breaks, but also to another point that we made earlier, that your presentations have to be shorter online. You just can't have that hour-long PowerPoint and expect people to pay attention and really learn from that the same way that you might get away with in person.
And with a gift, and do maybe 5 and have them sealed, and make sure that people don't open them until like one seminar or one event or one part of the meeting.
A great
open box today.
Sorry, Helen. A great best practice anytime you're transitioning content, throw in a question, a quick game, a quick improv, anything.
You got to keep the engagement going.
Something else I want to point out that I think is important is a lot of people are planning engagement activities for after hours, and sometimes that's not the wisest thing to do in this day and age, right? Everybody's working from home. Their kids are staring at them saying, gosh, you've been working all day on the computer, mom, or the husband's like, could we, you know, maybe have dinner together tonight? It's almost harder because you're not functioning. So I like to encourage a lot of my people, you know, maybe hold it during office hours, but towards the end of the day so that you're wrapping up the day with it.
That's a great point too. Dan, were you going to say something?
I think there's a fun way to do an accountability test as well, where some presentations that I've done in the past, you've hidden certain things, almost like your scavenger hunt, but they're actually in the presentation. At the end, is it worth the $100 gift card? What was the color of the square on slide 2? You know, because I want to know that you were paying attention. I want to know that you were engaged, but I'm also not going to tell you about it. You know, like I think those types of treatments are going to be something that we look forward to, you know, in the near future. Even using a QR code as something like, take out your phone. I know it's right next to your computer. I know it's right next to you. And quickly, you know, take a screenshot of this QR code. Now it unlocks something else. So it is, you know, more or less it's engagement. So
I love that idea. That's fantastic. Very creative. When we're doing these virtual events now, even hybrid, there are some people think it's just pressing a button to do it, but there's a whole bunch that goes in. I mean, we have a whole crew working on this in the background to make it go successful. So just from your guys' perspective, Tim, what are the different positions that are involved in doing the virtual on your end of it?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the scope and scale, whether it's more webinar style or more broadcast style, but we'll almost always have, you know, broadcast engineer who's, you know, controlling, switching the production. We'll often, if we have a broadcast that has multiple guests, we'll have almost a virtual camera operator who's bringing the guests in, connecting them, doing audio checks with them, and making sure that everything's working before they go on screen. And we'll usually have a producer who's working